Hello to my panel, Allison and Mary, part two of weight. Last week we talked about anorexia. We talked about the ideal weight, shall we say, and if we're overweight, does it put stress on our bodies? We talked all about that, and there were some really good thoughts. And I want to bring another point to you today. We've talked about inner beauty as well. I'd like to point from the Bible that during the 1970s, when exercise wasn't so popular as it is today, we may have heard our friends, and I have heard this quoted many times, and I'm sure you have as well, from 1 Timothy 4 verse 8, for bodily exercise profiteth little. Now, did they have a point there, or do you think that's a misappropriation of scripture here? What's your thoughts on that, Mary?
I think people can make scripture apply to anything they want it to, and this is a prime example of it, really, just taking it out of context. But yeah, exercise is good for the heart, isn't it? It's a good thing, but I was never into sport. I was never one to enjoy sport or exercise at all. I don't know how I kept my figure, really, because I did precious little to keep myself healthy exercise wise. So I'm perhaps not the person to talk to about it. I used to hide in the lockers at school and not want to play hockey and things. And yet I kept my figure, and my muscles were good. So I don't know, just genetic, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go to Allison. Your view on that.
Well, I think in biblical times, the average person walked everywhere.
Yeah.
Hardly anyone had a donkey. And, only the rich people had a donkey, and then the richer people had chariots. And so culturally, external exercise other than day-to-day stuff was a different thing. Walking is very good for you. And I mean, I've taken to mountain climbing. Why did I do that? Because one of my kids was in a terrible accident, and as soon as he could walk, he wanted to really do the best that he could do with the second chance that God had given him. And so he took to climbing the mountains, and I'm climbing with him. I'm definitely fitter now than I was when I was a kid. I would say 16, when we were running around together. I think it's a use it or lose it kind of thing. And the more you apply yourself, I mean, try. There are exercises you can do from a wheelchair. I know, because my son was in one.
Yes.
And we did everything we could do to use every part of his body that would work. So this is not a discompassionate, this is not coming from a discompassionate place. This is saying, if you can use your hands, use your hands. Find exercises, pray about it. Look for things that you can do, rather than saying, oh, I can't do that.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. I think, when, like yesterday, I did 14,000 steps. I say I don't exercise, but I love walking. And I think if you can do something you love, like dancing or whatever, for me, it's dancing or walking. I don't like going to the gym or anything so organised, but many people do. And if they like it and they enjoy it, then it's great, because it gets your body moving.
I totally agree. I think walking is really good. And I think now that the NHS are really endorsing this. And also the doctors are almost prescribing, or are prescribing, park runs for people. And I have been on park runs myself. I'm not a fast runner. I have a go. My husband's a good runner. And I would say that I have seen larger ladies at the back, and they have been walking round, and they have been doing fantastic. Anything to get your body moving is good. Now, there are those, Allison, you mentioned, and I'm glad you brought this up, people who are in wheelchairs. And I think even if you can only shuffle, do what you can.
Yeah.
Because as you say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I don't know if you've ever had a heavy cold and you've had to lie on the settee for a few days or go to your bed. When you get up, you feel really weak, don't you? And that's because you've not been using your muscles. So I think this scripture is actually not telling us, when people laugh at this and say, oh, I don't think it means exercise. I actually think that exercise does us good, and that has been proven.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what about, sorry, Jeannie, but I've had a couple of friends that have had ME. They can't exercise.
Right.
They simply can't. So, you know, however much they want to. And one of them actually runs marathons now, because I don't know how, but managed to get out of it, and actually would run a marathon now and be able to quite fast as well. But if you're in that kind of physical position, as in with a wheelchair, you know, if you lose the ability to move your limbs,
Yes.
there's not much you can do. Really.
No, there is that side as well.
Yeah.
Alison, were you gonna say?
Well, my father has ME, and I have watched him courageously do what he can when he can.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. When you can, do it. If you can't, there's no judgment on this.
No.
Yeah.
I think the travesty is when we can and we won't.
Yeah.
That's the bigger thing.
That's the difference, isn't it? Yeah, totally agree there. Totally. So while we're on these lines then, do you think, for instance, hormonal changes, now we have talked a bit about this, for women and men, slow our metabolic rate down due to aging? And do you think it is God's way of allowing us to mature and slow down our pace? What's your thoughts on that, Alison?
Well, I would like to be like the patriarchs who's you know, like Abraham. He says his eyes didn't even dim into his old age.
Oh.
And mind you, we're all wearing glasses on here, but I keep reminding, okay, Lord, but maybe I can have vision that I can have vision even if I wear glasses, right? But why? I believe there is a mandate and a call on my life. And if I can support the call of God on my life by feeding my body properly so that I have longevity, so that I have the ability to go the next mile and the mile after that, and, you know, see his kingdom come in some way through my role, why would I want to slow down?
I love your attitude.
Feeding your, Alison's come up with this several times, feeding your body properly. That's crucial, isn't it?
Yes.
To eat the right foods that are going to nourish us. And quite often that means homegrown foods, because they're processed a lot, aren't they, in the shop? Just be careful what you put into your body as well.
Yeah, I would say that is true. We do have to put in what we in our bodies. You know, we are what we eat, aren't we? Very often as well. Now, for me, I don't like the word diet, because the word diet, I think, says fail instantly. Whereas I think, like, when we've used words like moderation or cutting back, going for exercise, all these things are going to help people over the weeks and months. They're going to notice a difference and change in their bodies. I really believe that. And also, we've said, you know, if we feel overweight, we can go to slimming clubs and things like that to help us as well. Now, what about people? Because, I just wanted to say, because we do slow down, don't we? But I don't think we should make that an excuse.
No.
Do you?
No.
Okay, that's good. We've covered that then. I think that's important to bring up. So let's go on to people then who smoke, because people who smoke, sometimes they're rather thin and they don't want to give up smoking because they're going to put on weight, and they've got this worry or fear about gaining weight or a person may leave a manual job, and so therefore they're putting on the pounds as well. And people retire and then they just think, well, I'll sit and eat, maybe. So what would you say about that, Mary?
Well, I was just laughing because when I was 18 and I had put on that weight, as I told you before, I decided I'd start smoking to lose the weight. And it did nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, I think I put on more weight. So, yeah.
Okay.
We just...
Then Allison.
Well, I'm drawing a blank, so maybe we should pass.
Okay. Okay, go on, you tell us, Jeannie.
Well, I think when people give up smoking, they can actually feel a little bit low, can't they? Or a bit down.
Oh, okay.
You know, I can remember when my own father gave up smoking, it was like for 2 hours. And then it was like for 2 days and 2 weeks. And my father just gave it up after that. And he just had this mindset that he wanted to do it. And I think sometimes it is mindset.
It is.
And I think, and I think sometimes people who are retired feel loss of friendship sometimes that they had at work. So maybe they feel like they've lost their friends and they comfort each. That's a possibility. And we know that smoking can affect us because there is all these chemicals, aren't there? I've never smoked myself, but there are a lot of chemicals in cigarettes. But we know that people, on the other hand, don't want to get too big or too overweight. Again, I think it comes to moderation, doesn't it, as well?
Well, I used to smoke quite heavily and then gave up, well, about 30 years ago now, you know, for the second time, which was more depressing for me. But I gave up without any aids or anything. I've always given up stuff without, you know, I've prayed about it and just given it up.
Yeah.
And it is quite hard because it's so addictive. You know, it runs like your dad. It was your dad, was it, that gave it up?
Yeah.
It goes through your mind. You know, if you stop smoking, then the nicotine craving kicks in your mind. All you can think about is cigarettes. A bit like dieting. If you're not allowed to eat something, it will go around your mind. That very thing that you don't want to focus on, you will end up focusing on.
Yeah, become big, won't it? I agree.
Yeah. But it's much healthier not to. Huge research that smoking causes cancer, and you know, we don't want to go there, do we really? So it doesn't really help. And if it's any consolation to anybody out there thinking they might smoke to lose weight, didn't work for me. So
okay, thank you for that, Mary. What do you think about people who are trying to give up cigarettes and they go on to this other, I can't remember the name of it, like a substitute, a vape? I mean, surely, is that good for our lungs?
I don't think it's as bad.
No, it's terrible.
Exactly.
Is it worse?
My son-in-law is a pulmonologist, and he says they've got kids who are coming into the ER and onto his ward, and their lungs are like the lungs of, you know, like 80-year-old men that have been smoking their whole life. It's terrible.
Well, that's
and
dreadful.
yet being marketed to kids.
Yeah.
So anyway, nicotine is an appetite depressant, and so that's probably why the proposed weight gain. I mean, it's poison either way. Excess food is poison, and smoking is poison. So really, it's about us finding our balance, getting accountability, and walking through this, you know, with Jesus. And I can't stress that enough, because these are some things we can handle, but we're not all strong like Mary.
I'm not strong. What makes you think that?
You smoking.
I put that anything I've given up is down to the Lord, really, honestly. You know, because I've got very little self-control, actually.
Okay. And self-control does come into it, though, doesn't it? Don't you think?
Well, you have to decide to, don't you? You have to decide that's what I want to do. Then you have to really get with Jesus about it. Yeah. Because I think on our own, it's so easy to give in.
Yeah. You decide and you decide again. and you
Yeah.
just keep
Yeah.
on deciding.
Yeah.
And every day is a decision. And sometimes you decide, okay, for the next 5 minutes, well, we worked in a recovery center. So for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be clean and sober, whether it's from nicotine, whether it's from excessive food consumption, whether it's food restriction. For the next 5 minutes, I can do this.
That's
And
a very good way to
take it moment by moment, moment by moment. But like you said with your dad, the 2 hours turned into 2 days, turned into 2 weeks, turned into 2 years.
Yeah.
And now he has a sober lifestyle from nicotine. And we can have a sober lifestyle from any hurt, habit, or hang up.
Yeah, I think you've explained that so beautifully. I really do there, Alison.
Yeah, brilliant.
Now, apparently, we can gain weight when we eat more calories than we are burning up. Okay, so is our chief aim with food fuel or fun? What's your answer to that, Alison?
Both. I think if you only eat food for fuel and it's not fun, you're going to get bored pretty quickly. I think finding a plan that works for you, and some fuel is not efficient. And so feeding our bodies what it needs to do the wonderful job that it has to do. Yeah, I think it can be fun and fuel. But I think when treats become a daily thing, so I'm the addictive brain among us. And so my desire for, like, I had a vegan ice cream last night, and I had one when we got to the city. So I've had 2 ice creams in the last week. Well, I might not have another ice cream for, I don't know, I'm not counting. But if I had to have it in some stages of my life, I'd have that ice cream, and then I'd want one for snack, and then maybe I want one for after dinner, and then I'm already building the obsession. So anything that you're obsessing about really it's feeding the wrong part of you.
Yeah.
And for me, needs to go on the altar, because I need to feed my spirit and I need to feed my body, but I don't need to feed obsessions, and not food obsessions either. The problem is we have to eat. And so our human nature is so good at justifying everything. Oh, I need to eat. Yeah, but you don't need to eat cheesecake for a month. You don't need to eat chocolate. You don't just need to eat those things. We need to feed ourselves so that we can be the finest version that we can be, for the glory of God forever.
Amen. And I think even that's got its problems, hasn't it? Because when I'm really down or anxious, I can't eat. I physically can't eat. My mouth will dry up, my throat will close. I can't swallow anything. And that's like, my son thinks it's really weird. I mean, if I go out for a meal with him and I'm anxious, I just can't eat the meal. And it's embarrassing for me because my body won't do what I want it to do. So I think if you've got that kind of psychological problem going on as well, and you like an anorexic person would have, then you can't eat at all. So you can't put in what you want to put into your body. And there were several years where I I knew I had to eat. So it was like an exercise, try and eat, because I knew I had to nourish myself. And I think that's the opposite, isn't it, of having to deny yourself. It's having to force yourself to eat because it's good for you. So there's so many sides to this.
There really is. I mean, we could talk about this forever, couldn't we? As you say, there's so many sides to this. And I think runners, they certainly need fuel. They need carbohydrates. If you're going to do a marathon, you are going to need fuel, but we know that certain foods, they contain vitamins and minerals, and our body needs those vitamins and minerals as well. Like we know that calcium It builds our bones nice and strong. So we need that. And we know that B9, which is folate, we know that we need that as well because it helps our nervous system. So if we don't have them in our body and we lack them, our bodies will feel under par. We won't feel so good. So it's not all about fuel, but it is very important for runners to have fuel, or they wouldn't do their running so well as they do.
Yeah.
Now, I know someone who just cannot put on weight. She's very slight and she's tried so hard, but she's often been accused of being too thin, which she has found very hurtful. So what's your view on that then, Allison?
Well, that's unfortunate, and I hope that, and that's very sad, that's true. Body dysmorphia, it doesn't sound like it's her problem, but it's the problem of the people around her. And I think, you know, there's a real movement at this day and age. Be kind. And the way we talk and the way we are towards one another can make a difference. And so let's not be those people. Let's be aware that, I mean, I wonder if people are jealous. Give me a little bit of that problem.
Yeah, she really cannot put on weight. You know, she's just very slight.
I used to be, believe it or not, after I had the children, I lost so much weight because I had hyperemesis when I was pregnant. So I just lost 3 stone with my first pregnancy.
Right.
And I was so thin after Jamie.
Yes.
That I was being called all sorts of names, like, oh, you're very haggard, and looked like a spider in my jeans. And I would eat. I didn't have much money, but I would eat lots when I had the food. Couldn't put on weight at all. So, you know, it's fluctuations. They really do your head in, you know.
Yeah. And some people cannot put on weight. You know, we know that being too thin is not good for your health because, you know, also we think of the larger ladies, they may be thinking, well, it's not fair really. And it feels unfair, doesn't it?
But it's horrible being so thin that you can't put on any, you know, and you're looking a bit gaunt.
That's
and you're
right.
healthy and you're desperately trying to look better.
And it's not nice when people are saying to you, you're too thin, you need to eat more. That's really unkind, isn't it? So how can we rein in our tongue? That's what I want to know. So we don't hurt people with our comments about their personal appearance. I'm going to go to you there, Mary.
Oh, well, I think it's, you know, anyone, like any one of us that have been through anything like that or know people that have been through stuff like this are not going to be hurtful, are we? I think it pays to just think, well, there but for the grace of God go I, and just look at yourself. If you feel that thought coming into your head, oh, they're not dressed right or they don't look right, any kind of criticism, I think we need really to take that to the Lord, because there's something wrong in us if we're doing that, or it's coming from somewhere else. You know, we can't afford to be critical as people that belong to Jesus.
No, because people feel like they're being judged, aren't they? Or people think, oh, they're big, they must be lazy, or they get bullied, and children at school can get bullied at school, you know, and things like that. So, Allison, coming to wrap this up, what's your thoughts on that, please?
So in the addiction world, there are 2 phrases. One is clean up your own side of the street. So take care of what's yours and leave what someone else's to someone else. And there's another one, your opinion of me is none of my business. Tough onions, person. I'm sorry, but here we are. And be at peace with where God has you. At whatever phase of the journey, we have to accept ourselves where we're at, because even if you're someone that's if you feel like you've got weight to lose, love yourself where you're at while you're on the journey. Or if you're on the thinner side, half the world is envious of you. Live your best life right where God has you, right when he has you there. and accept yourself for the good of who you are, right here, right now, whatever phase of the journey you're on.
I think that's a lovely place to stop. Can I say thank you to you, Alison and Mary, because I think we have covered some of those issues. There is a lot more we could have said, but we have covered several issues today and last week. And I think this would be helpful to people to listen to encourage them on their journey to lose weight. So I think, as we said, moderation is probably one of the main keys as well of what we eat, and to ask the Lord to really help us as Christians if we do want to lose that weight. Thank you to my panel, Alison and Mary. God bless you. Bye for now.
Thank you.
God bless.